Hey there. You ready for this?
Yeah.
We're about to take a deep dive into something pretty amazing.
Oh,
The economic whirlwind that's about to hit Toronto, all thanks to Taylor Swift.
wow.
And we're not just talking ticket sales here.
Right.
This is about hotels getting booked solid,
Uh-huh.
restaurants dreaming up Taylor-themed menus,
Oh, wow.
and even that friend of yours who's suddenly become a friendship bracelet entrepreneur.
Interesting.
We're going to explore what we're calling Swiftonomics.
Okay.
The massive economic ripple effect generated by Taylor Swift
Yeah.
and her incredibly dedicated fan base.
That's great.
Is she about to rewrite the rules of Toronto's economy?
Hmm.
Let's find out.
Yeah, let's find out. It's a fascinating case study, really. It
Yeah.
shows the power of passionate fandom and how that translates into real economic impact.
To show.
We often talk about the entertainment industry in terms of cultural influence,
Right.
but the financial side is just as significant.
Absolutely. So let's set the stage.
Yeah.
Taylor's performing 6.
That's
Yes,
all.
you heard that right. 6 sold-out shows at the Rogers Center this month.
Wow, 6.
That's a staggering 240,000 fans.
That's a lot.
And many of them are traveling from outside Toronto.
I bet. And don't forget the massive pre-concert event,
Oh, yeah?
Toronto's version. Tailgate 24 expected to draw in another 60,000 people. That's a lot of Swifties.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And Destination Toronto, the city's tourism organization, is predicting a $282 million economic impact from all of this.
That's right. To break it down,
Okay,
that's $152 million in direct spending.
gotcha.
Things like hotels, food transportation, and all the shopping sprees.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where it gets interesting.
Good.
That initial spending then creates a ripple effect,
Uh-huh.
circulating through the local economy
Okay.
and ultimately ballooning to a projected $282 million.
Okay, wait. $282 million.
Yeah.
Help me wrap my head around that number.
Okay.
What does that actually look like in the real world?
Well, think of it this way.
Okay.
When a Swiftie books a hotel room, that hotel then uses some of that money to pay its staff, buy supplies, and maybe even invest in renovations.
Right.
Those employees then spend their wages at local businesses,
Yeah.
and so on.
Yeah.
It's a chain reaction of economic activity.
So it's like dropping a pebble in a pond
Exact.
and watching the ripples spread out further and further.
Exactly. And that's just in Toronto. One research firm estimated that Taylor's entire U.S. Eras tour could generate a jaw-dropping $4.6 billion.
Wow.
That's a testament to the sheer size and dedication of her fan base.
It is.
We're talking about people driving hours,
Yeah.
crossing borders, even dipping into their savings to see these shows.
I read about a student who drove 3 hours from Vancouver just to see Taylor in Seattle.
Wow.
And then there's that other student who used money she'd saved for commuting expenses to snag a ticket for one of the Toronto shows.
Wow.
The dedication is unreal.
It is.
But it's not just about the big numbers, right?
Right.
This is impacting real people's lives.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another interesting point.
Okay.
Over 90% of that direct spending
Yeah.
is projected to come from visitors, not locals.
Oh, wow.
So Taylor Swift is essentially acting as a massive tourism magnet for Toronto.
It's like she's a one-woman economic stimulus package.
Well, in a way, yes.
Wow.
And this couldn't come at a better time for the city.
Right.
Toronto's tourism sector is still recovering from the pandemic.
Yeah,
So this influx of visitors is a welcome boost.
for sure.
Hotels are reporting record bookings.
I bet.
Restaurants are bracing themselves for a Swiftie surge.
Yeah.
And businesses are finding all sorts of creative ways to tap into this wave of enthusiasm.
That's great.
I even saw a Taylor Swift-themed exhibit advertised at the Bata Shoe Museum.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But on a more serious note, with all this spending,
Yeah.
we have to talk about the potential tax revenue.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big piece of the Swiftonomics puzzle, right?
Initial projections indicate that these events could generate around $40 million in tax revenue across all levels of government.
Wow, $40 million.
Yeah.
That's not chump change.
No, it's not.
Where does all that money go?
Well, it gets distributed across federal, provincial, and municipal levels.
Right.
But here's an interesting detail.
Okay.
The city of Toronto itself is only expected to receive about $5 to $7.5 million of that.
Hold on. Why is that?
Yeah.
You'd think the city hosting the events would get the lion's share of the tax revenue.
It's not always that straightforward.
Okay.
A big chunk of that $40 million comes from things like sales taxes,
Right.
which are primarily collected and distributed at the federal and provincial levels.
Hmm.
The city's portion mainly comes from hotel taxes, parking fees, and public transit fares.
Interesting. So while everyone benefits to some degree,
Right.
the city itself might not see as much of a direct financial windfall as some might assume.
That's a valid point, and it raises some important questions
Okay.
about how this wealth is distributed
Yeah.
and whether it's trickling down to the people who are really making these events happen, the tourism workers. A report from the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario highlighted that a lot of tourism jobs are still low-wage and part-time.
That's true.
So while the city's seeing this economic boost,
Hmm.
we need to make sure the benefits are reaching the people on the ground.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That's a really important point to consider.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of the event itself, but we need to remember the people working behind the scenes to make it all happen.
Exactly. And speaking of behind the scenes,
Okay.
there's another layer to this whole Swiftonomics phenomenon.
Gotcha.
It's not just about the concerts themselves.
Right.
It's the ripple effect that extends far beyond the walls of the Rogers Center.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this ripple effect.
Think about all the events and activities popping up around the main attraction. Taylor-themed brunches,
Yeah.
museum exhibits,
Right.
that choir sing-along you mentioned.
Yeah.
These are all generating economic activity.
So it's like the entire city is getting a Taylor Swift makeover. I'm picturing glitter friendship bracelets
Right.
and maybe even a few strategically placed snakes.
Well, maybe not the snakes. But you're right. There's a definite buzz in the air.
Yeah.
And this energy translates into dollars spent at local businesses, jobs created,
Okay.
and a sense of excitement that goes way beyond just those attending the concerts.
So even if you couldn't snag a ticket to the main event, there are still ways to participate in the Swiftie frenzy
Yeah,
and contribute to the local economy.
precisely. And that's what makes this ripple effect so fascinating.
Okay.
Let's say a restaurant decides to host a Taylor Swift-themed night.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to need extra staff,
Right.
more food and drinks,
Yeah.
maybe even some decorations.
Yeah.
That means they're placing larger orders with their suppliers,
Okay.
who in turn benefit.
Right.
And then there's the graphic designer hired to create those Instagram-worthy Taylor-themed menus.
Oh, wow.
It's a chain reaction of economic activity, all sparked by this one event.
Wow, that's a really great point. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So when we talk about a $282 million economic impact,
Right.
it's not just about what's happening inside the concert venue.
No.
It's about the entire ecosystem that springs up around it.
Exactly. And economists use specific models to measure this indirect impact.
Okay.
They look at factors like increased spending in related industries, job creation, and the multiplier effect, how each dollar spent generates additional economic activity.
That's fascinating. It sounds like there's a whole science to understanding Swiftonomics.
There is.
Wow.
And it's a reminder that the economic impact of an event like this extends far beyond the initial ticket sales.
Okay.
It's about the hotels,
Right.
the restaurants,
Yeah.
the transportation services,
Yeah.
and all the other businesses that benefit from this surge in activity.
But let's be realistic. With any large-scale event, there are bound to be some downsides.
Right. You're absolutely right.
Not everything is glitter and rainbows.
While there's a lot of optimism surrounding Taylor Swift's concerts, it's important to consider the potential drawbacks as well.
Okay.
For instance, some hotels have been accused of price gouging,
Oh, no.
with rates soaring to over $2,000 per night during the concert dates.
2,000.
That's 10 times their usual rate.
Wow. That's pretty outrageous. It makes you wonder who can actually afford to experience all this Swiftonomics.
Yeah.
It shouldn't just be for the wealthy, right?
Exactly. And it raises concerns about accessibility for fans, especially those traveling on a budget.
Right.
Not everyone can afford to shell out thousands of dollars for a hotel room, on top of the cost of concert tickets and travel expenses.
So there's a potential for some real inequalities to emerge even amidst this economic boom.
There is. And we also have to think about the impact on local residents.
Right.
An influx of 240,000 people can put a strain on a city's resources and infrastructure.
That makes sense. Imagine the traffic jams, the crowded public transportation, and the increased demand on emergency services.
Right. And what about the residents who live near the concert venue?
Oh, yeah.
They might be dealing with increased noise levels,
I can imagine.
parking shortages, and even difficulty accessing their homes or businesses.
That would be terrible.
These are all factors that need to be considered.
So while there are clearly huge economic benefits,
Right.
there are also some potential challenges that come with hosting an event of this magnitude.
Absolutely. And that's where thoughtful planning and management come into play.
Yeah.
How can the city leverage the economic benefits of an event like this
Right.
while mitigating the potential negative impacts?
Yeah.
It's a complex equation.
It is.
And there's another layer to this complexity that we need to unpack. Not everyone agrees with those rosy projections we discussed earlier.
Oh, tell me more. I'm always interested in hearing different perspectives,
Okay.
especially when they challenge the prevailing narrative.
Well, some critics, including a marketing professor we came across,
Mm-hmm.
are questioning whether the city will actually see a profit
Well,
after accounting for all the associated costs.
that's a valid point.
Yeah.
We've been talking about all the money coming in,
Right.
but what about the money going out?
Exactly. And that's where things get interesting.
Okay.
This professor argues that we need to factor in the cost of things,
Uh-huh.
like extra garbage collection,
Hmm.
increased police presence for security,
Okay.
and traffic management.
You're right. Those things aren't free.
No, they're not.
Someone has to pay for all those extra services,
Yeah.
and those costs can add up quickly.
They can. Are there any specific examples of these hidden costs?
Sure.
Think about the wear and tear on public infrastructure.
Okay.
With thousands of extra people using public transit sidewalks and roads, there's bound to be increased maintenance and repair costs.
That makes sense.
And let's not forget about the environmental impact.
Oh, right.
A larger influx of people means more waste, higher energy consumption, and potentially a bigger carbon footprint.
So it's not just about the money coming in. It's about the money going out
Mm.
and the potential long-term consequences.
Precisely. And this professor argues that while the city might be bringing in $282 million,
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily translate to a net profit after accounting for all these expenses.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like when you're running a business,
Right.
you can have a lot of revenue,
Yeah.
but if your costs are too high,
Yeah.
you're not actually making any money.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to have a nuanced understanding of the economic impact of events like this. It's not always as simple as it seems.
So we've got this incredible economic engine
Yeah.
fueled by Taylor Swift and her fans.
Right.
But we also have to acknowledge the potential costs
Yeah.
and the need for careful planning to ensure everyone benefits.
It's a balancing act for sure. And it reminds us that economic impact analysis isn't always black and white.
Right.
There are a lot of gray areas, and we need to consider all sides of the equation.
And let's not forget the human element here.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We've got students dipping into their savings,
Right.
fans traveling across borders,
Yeah.
and a city buzzing with anticipation.
Yeah.
There's a real emotional investment in this event that goes beyond just dollars and cents.
Absolutely. You can't quantify the joy,
Yeah,
the excitement, the sense of community that comes with an event like this.
right.
Those are all valuable in their own right.
For sure.
And that brings us to a fascinating thought.
Okay.
Imagine if cities could harness this kind of energy,
Yeah.
this passionate fandom for other purposes.
Now you're talking. We've been exploring the economic side of Swiftonomics,
Mm-hmm.
but what if we could apply those principles to other areas,
Uh-huh.
like social causes or community initiatives?
What if we could channel the dedication of Swifties toward tackling climate change,
Wow.
promoting literacy, or supporting local businesses year-round?
Yeah.
Imagine the possibilities.
That's a powerful idea. It's like taking the best parts of Swiftonomics,
Yeah.
the passion, the
Mhm.
community, the willingness to invest time and resources, and directing them toward goals that benefit everyone.
Exactly. It's not necessarily about replicating what Taylor Swift has done,
Okay.
but understanding the underlying principles.
Yeah.
What is it about her connection with her fans
Right.
that makes them so devoted, so willing to go above and beyond?
Yeah.
And how can we apply those insights to other areas?
Those are some big questions. And I have a feeling they're questions that will be debated and discussed long after the last confetti has fallen at the Rogers Center.
And that's a good thing. It means we're thinking critically, engaging with complex issues, and looking for creative solutions. And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll discover that Swiftonomics has implications that extend far beyond the realm of entertainment.
Well, you've certainly given us a lot to think about, from friendship bracelets to tax revenues to the potential for social change. This has been one wild deep dive.
It has. And it just goes to show that sometimes the most unexpected topics can lead to the most fascinating insights.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
So to our listener, we leave you with this: keep your eyes peeled for the swiftonomics at play in your own life and in your community.
Yeah.
You might be surprised by what you discover. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Taylor Swift and her impact on Toronto.
It was fun.
We'll catch you next time.